Sweet. Yeah. So bit weird being back at uni though, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Especially like because I went from being like in halls and it was like we finished 4 months before, so then to
Oh
go from
yeah,
that
yeah.
is a bit mad.
Nice, mate. It's not right at the minute. Like fully isolated. Like it's not uni, but you know what I mean. It is what it is, sort of thing. Like you get used to it.
Yeah,
You got to like.
like
Ke-
sorry,
what were you
wait, did you
saying?
say something? No, 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 I
No, no,
interrupted you.
no. I was just like, yeah, you just got to keep your head down, like do your thing, sort of thing. But it's hopefully it'll get better. But who knows? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I was speaking to like some of kind of the other boys in knots, and they're all isolating now. So I think everyone's
Yeah.
hoping like after this kind of 2 week cycle or 3 week cycle, whatever it is, that things will kind of get back to normal. So kind of
Yeah,
like, but yeah,
definitely. Like it should be like that, but like again, who knows? Like it's all so up in the air at the minute. Horrible times, but like we move.
yeah.
But anyway, the reason we're here today, of course, you're joining me for the podcast. Sorry that we aren't in London in the studio, but you know, technology, so we can obviously have it here. But yeah, so thank you for doing this again. It's brilliant. Um, going to start things off with just tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, my pleasure, by the way. That I really am the one that should be thanking you. But my story is when I was 8. Unfortunately, my mother and brother passed in a car accident. And they were kind of on. They were like, yeah, it was just like really sudden and just completely like out of the blue. And yeah, I don't know what else. I don't know how I'm supposed to describe it. Oh, by the way, are you doing it like over video? Is it a video recording as well?
Yeah. It's video recording.
All right, okay. Got a fresh
You
trim and
look good,
everything.
mate. You look good, mate. You look good, mate. It's all right. So yeah, so you were saying it was a car accident.
Yes, yeah.
Do you remember much from that day? I know well, you said you were 8, so that's a while ago. But how much of the event do you remember?
Um, that's the thing. I wasn't actually there because my parents and my brother had gone to Birmingham to for his graduation, and so me and my eldest brother were in London, and I was at a friend's house. I was at a friend's house, and all like it was like very much, a lot of Jewish schools like we finish earlier, like 1:15 or whatever.
Yeah,
So I was supposed to go to a friend's house after school. Excuse me. Oh God.
it's all right, mate. Take your time.
No, that's it. It's not even like emotional. It's just my throat. Like my throat is getting a bit dry.
Yeah, sure.
So I went to a friend's house after school, and
Yeah,
we picked up like 4 o'clock or whatever. And then all of a sudden, my oldest brother, just shows up at like 2, and so I'm really confused. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And then I just kind of see my friend's mother, who knew my mum very well, and like she was just completely distraught, and like I had no idea what was going on, and that like always
yeah,
kind of from there it was like, okay, something is going on. So we go
yeah,
back to my house. My brother kind of tells me, and then it was just kind of it was quite emotional after that, and then we headed to the hospital, which was like I think an hour or two drive.
yeah.
And then with my dad for like the next couple of days in hospital with him because he was in the car at the time, but luckily he kind of got out with minor injuries.
Okay, fine. Well, of course, as an 8-year-old at the time, it must have been extremely traumatic. How much of it did you actually understand of what was going on?
That's the thing. I feel like I understood quite a lot of it, but the issue
Yeah,
wasn't that. Like I understood like how death works, and at the time like that I wasn't like going to see them again, and they were kind of just gone. My kind of issue is just kind of like processing it. I think I don't think I it's like any eight obviously for any 8-year-old it would be extremely hard, but
yeah,
I I don't know how well I looking at it, I don't know how well I processed it.
yeah.
But
I think you process it as well as you can due to the circumstances. Like, of course, with any loss, it's hard, and I think even more so when it's, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but when it's brought upon out of nowhere, sort of thing. And that's kind of what a car crash sort of, well, that's what my understanding would be. It's sort of unexpected.
Yeah, it was.
That
Yeah,
makes
it was
sense.
very. Yeah, I think it is. It is different in a way. I think it is very different to well between like what you have gone through, for example, with
Yeah,
your mum, what I went through, because um, you had to kind of you had to deal with that very gradually, whereas I was kind of had to deal with it
yeah,
quickly. It's not like there's no difference in difficulty or anything like that, but it's just a different experience. I'd think.
yeah. I think with loss in general, like the similarity, like there are a lot of similarities, but of course, everyone has their own unique perspective and their own unique story. And I think it's important to embrace that and, acknowledge that everyone has their own their own story almost. And something I want to ask is, um, you know, when so obviously when you said when this happened, and how initially, what was your initial reaction? Like, was it did your mother, and was it your brother you said
Yes.
who?
Yeah, both. Yeah.
So was like, was it in the car accident straight away they both passed, or did they go to hospital, and like how was it, sort of thing?
So they both passed straight away, and for me, kind of dealing with it, it was just shock, kind of the first couple of
Yeah,
days. Like I can't. Like I remember the day. I remember the day that we went to the hospital very specifically, and then it's like the
yeah,
week, and then I remember like bits from the week, but it's like if you like in terms of time, like I just feel like it was a lot of it was a blur.
yeah.
But um,
It
but yeah,
passes you by, doesn't it?
yeah, but it was just like really just shock because it's just like all of a sudden these two people that are like constant fixtures in your life, and as a kid you just assume you take it for granted that you're gonna
Yeah,
have these people in your
the
life for
longevity.
yeah, and then it's just like they're not, and then yeah, but I didn't really talk. It took me a while. It took me, to be honest, it took me quite a few years before I really kind of talked about it. And like
Yeah,
even like and the months after the accident, I tended to not avoid it, but if someone was to ask me how am I feeling about any of this, I just say, look, I'm dealing with it. I'm kind of going through it and just kind of trying to move on and just make my life not move
yeah.
on, but forward. But
Well, the thing I would say to that is you are, being at such a young age, you don't really understand your own emotions. I mean, it's only taken me till, this point in my life till I have a somewhat understanding of what goes on up here. So to be delivered this horrendous this trauma, and it kind of makes sense how you can't explain how you're feeling, sort of thing, built on top of the fact that you are dealt this massive blow, but also being so young at the time. It's like it must have been incredibly difficult for you, mate. Like, I honestly, I don't know what to say. Like, just could have it must have been such a traumatic period of time. And I think that is the thing with loss in general. Like, it takes time to be able to talk about it, but when you when you're ready, you will open up, sort of thing. Um, so another point of interest. Um, so obviously, initially, you may not have been able to talk about it, but at what point in your life have you did you come to not come to terms with it, but were you more accepted and more willing to discuss what you faced and experienced?
um, I think it did take me quite a long time to actually be in a position where I could easily be like asked
Yeah,
questions, like to where I'd be able to deal with it. I think maybe like really kind of talk to people about it was maybe 12, 13.
yeah,
But like even now, like I'm still discovering things like in terms of processing it, like I'm still discovering things that I might not have that I hadn't figured out before. And like things that just in my head I hadn't realized I was considering. Um,
yeah.
But yeah, I think it's if I'm honest, I think it's an ongoing process. I think we'll never kind of be done. It's like in like psychology, they have like a theory is how children deal with grief, and maybe it applies to adults as well. But it's like, imagine if, like a jar, and then like a bit of like tar or a bit of black falls in the jar, and it's like this tiny jar. So at the time, it's almost like overflowing the jar, but then over time, like the jar gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's like a metaphor for your life. It's like your experience, people you let in, and they believe that in a way helps you in moving forward and living your life. That helps you deal with grief. So in that way, like, it's always going to be there. It's always going to be.
I mean, it's an ever moving beast. But how has your grief, would you say, changed over time?
I think at first it was very hard to talk about, to think about it. But I think now I can say that I'm at a point where it doesn't feel it feels bittersweet, essentially. Instead of being very kind of difficult to think about, it's like it's in a very kind of content way, in a very like kind of pleasant way. I always think about them like it always fills me in a way, like kind of a complicated joy, like when people tell me stories about them and like things that they were doing and like so I don't
sorry, it's like I forgot to ask you what your mum and your brother's names are. So if you just for reference.
So my mum was called Nadia and my brother was called Ben or Benjamin.
Okay. And at the time, how old was Ben when he passed?
Ben was 21. He just graduated at Birmingham, which was really? I know at the time, and Ben was extreme, like really hardworking, really dedicated, and like he only really needed a 2-1 in terms of like doing what he wanted, to do. He only needed a 2-1, and he like worked to get like a first for my parents, and like that was just
that's amazing.
That's like the person he was. It's crazy. But yeah,
you say that with a smile on your face. So you proud of him, the person he was.
Yeah,
it seems like you.
Extremely. It's just big shoes to fill.
Say that again.
Big shoes to fill.
Yeah, I think like it's amazing though that you can say that like he had such a, would you say he had an impact on your life going forward and how you view things and how hard you work and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. He was a major influence on me before and after the accident, maybe more so after the accident. I can always try to kind of keep him in my thoughts. Whenever I'm working, I always kind of try to do something. I always kind of have him in mind in terms of like the type of person he was, and like the way he treated people, like how great he was, not just with me as a kid growing, like as an 8-year-old kid growing up, because it's a little weird to have a younger brother that's like 13 years difference, but he was unbelievably caring, unbelievably kind, and I always try to look to him as an example in everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I think so. At the time, so you felt particularly close to Ben and obviously your mother. Did you, like, obviously as a child you naturally are connected, you have a natural connection to your mother, but like you said, the age difference between you and your brother was quite substantial. So at the time, did you have a particular bond? Did you have a particular bond and connection sort of thing?
Yeah, like they're just like small things. My brother, when he was growing up and when I was growing, he really liked Ninja Turtles, and like when I was growing up I also did. And and we just
Who's just your be like favorite Ninja Turtle?
Probably Raphael. Raphael's my favorite.
Leonardo.
No, come on! You're going for the mainstream, man. You got to branch out.
I got to, mate. I do love a bit of Leonardo, can't lie. But so you had a connection over, obviously.
Yeah.
Did your brother Yeah, carry on. Sorry.
And like sometimes in the nights, like if I didn't have school or something the next day, when he was like back from uni, like he just kind of sit next to me in the bed, and he just like pretend he'd do like a really deep voice and be like, "Oh, I'm Splinter. I'm gonna train you in the ways of kung fu. We're gonna show you how to play, like play around."
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just like small things like that, you know. You just kind of always think about it. It's always in your head, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's important though. It's important to carry those memories and those times you had together with you, you know, because ultimately they're not going anywhere. And you know, sometimes whenever I'm feeling down, or if I need a bit of inspiration, I do just have a little. I think about the times mum made me laugh and things like that, and it really just manages to alter my mood, sort of thing. And it's amazing the power of just these memories and these times we had together and the times we shared together. And it's amazing how they can have such a profound implication on just your mental state. Um, but yeah, so I do keep, like, one thing I do want to say is, um, so obviously, you know, you're at uni, and a lot when you move to uni, you're meeting a lot of people for the first time. You're seeing, you know, is this, so I've had this, like, not this query, but I tend not to. Do you feel like you bring up what has happened in your trauma? Do you, when you meet someone new for the first time, is that something that plays on your mind, or how do you deal with it?
I think it depends on the situation, because
Yeah,
you know, like we're both Jewish, and like obviously kind of it's a quite like a tight knit community, so everyone kind of knows,
yeah,
everyone knows of everyone. So it's like sometimes people will be aware of it, and they won't I won't need to say anything sometimes. But usually if someone is someone completely new that I've never met or never heard of, I won't, even if they ask about my family, I'll just say, for example, with one brother is 13 years older than me and one brother's 18, and I don't really talk about it, just because,
yeah,
yeah, one, I feel like it's going to be like number one best way to kill a conversation is just, you know what I mean? It's just like
yeah, completely.
it's
It's
like
not intentional though. It's like it's not intentional, but like naturally bringing this up into any sort of conversation will it deepen any element of like a light-hearted chat. It's like, oh, like, well, why did you say that? But it is, I mean, something I like to include, like, it's part of my life. And it's very hard to ignore, like when someone says like, oh, um what is it your parents do? So I do, I say, yeah, I don't say what's happened. I just continue, like, oh yeah, mum's a teacher, or dad does property, sort of thing. So I very much continue her in the loop, if that makes sense.
yeah, I just think that, you know, if for people that haven't gone through something like that, and they're talking to someone, or they're just meeting someone that has,
Yeah.
they don't, if you do bring it up, they don't, you know, they always kind of feel, it always makes them uncomfortable to hear something like that, because it is a very kind of shocking and kind of bit of a curveball in any kind of light-hearted
Oh yeah,
conversation.
completely.
But you know, they don't do it because they, you know, because they feel like not repulsed or anything, but they just feel sympathy,
People
really.
don't know how to handle trauma. They don't. It's unless you've faced it and you've experienced it. It's very difficult to know how to respond and react to someone. And most of the time, you know, I'm speak, you know, I'm not in a bad way, but it's very difficult for people to know what, you know, we best need and how best to handle situations. And I think, you know, that conversations like these are important, because, you know, it just shows that we are open to discussing our lives, sort of thing. Do you, like, in general, do you feel comfortable talking about what you faced, and um is this something like you, or is it something only with like a handful of your friends you feel comfortable talking about, sort of thing?
I feel comfortable talking about it. Like if people are genuinely curious, like they want to understand, I'm happy. Like
Yeah,
I'm happy to talk about it, but I don't. It's not something that I advertise, if you know what I mean.
yeah, yeah.
But usually people that I don't know don't usually ask me about it, even if they're aware of it or they know about
Yeah,
it.
I think it's just the idea of like the avoidance. I think when you don't know how to you don't want to face the reality, so you avoid a difficult topic because it's just easier that way. And then whether that's right or wrong is well, it's definitely not right, but it's the way things are. And I think it is upsetting, but also I understand it. And until I faced what I faced, I was well. I'm pretty sure I was the same. I would find these conversations just as hard and avoid them. But now I'm in a position where I get a lot of comfort about speaking about my mum, and whether it's sharing stories or whatever, I get a lot of. I'm proud. I'm proud of who she is and the person, the strength she has given me. Um, but yeah, so on the note of stories, I always in these kind of chats I like to discuss just like, is there any particular stories, any memories that sit fondly in your mind, sort of thing?
Um, yeah, I mean, I have a couple stories. Are we talking about stories from before the accident or stories from after that really kind of stick?
Well, no, just as the kind of person your mum and your brother were, so I can gain some sort of an insight to just like, well, yeah, just who they were as people, sort of thing.
Uh, I'll start with my mom. My mom was, I mean, I'm sure everyone says this, but my mom was the best. Like, she used to
Yeah,
make me like, don't know if you tried Iraqi food, but Iraqi Jewish food is just, it's unreal. And she used to make it like every day. And like, I remember whenever I was coming
yeah.
home from school, or like my brothers are in the house, like she'd always like make orange juice, like fresh orange juice for us. Like, she'd like
Okay.
get like, or something. And my brothers like were fine with the bits, the bits and oranges, and I never used to like them. And
Yeah.
my mom, bless
I'm not really
her,
a bits man. I'm not a bits man.
yeah. But my mom, she'd always like sieve them out just for me specifically, and like
Oh,
that's
really?
the yeah, and like she was just unbelievable, and like she was also an extremely opinionated person, and
Yeah.
yeah, and she was from what her friends had told me, they had like a lot of fun stories growing up and things, going out having fun, but yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot
It's
as in it's in the scope of being my mom, and it's kind of interesting to hear all this stuff that I never got to figure out, like having like knowing
established.
her. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's one of the difficult things of losing a parent, in your teen years or early childhood, is you you don't really have the chance to discover who it is. Well, firstly, you don't know who you are as a person, and like you haven't had the chance to really converse with your parent as an adult, sort of thing. I mean, I'm fortunate enough that I mum passed when I was 19, and at that age, I was because of my what happened for her, I was quite mature for my age, and so we, I had a very good picture of who it is my mum was. Um, but of course, being so young, I assume that's not something you really fully got to discover. Am I
No.
right in saying that?
Yeah, you are, and it's definitely something that I think will always be tough, but
Yeah,
it's something that I've kind of come to accept. It's like they're set to like some specific things, like in parents, and it's like they start making like inappropriate jokes, like when you're like 13,
yeah,
14, and like they just start making like inappropriate jokes, and it's just like, you're my parent, you can't do this. It's just like, yeah, it's
yeah,
just all those types of things that you never
yeah.
realize when you're
It's
younger.
Yeah, but I think something that is obviously very important to realize is like I don't your mum's spirit and her will always live on inside of you, and whatever the kind of person she for your short amount of time with her, she molded you in such a way, and I'm sure you are 100% a credit to who she wanted you to be, sort of thing. And I think it's when you initially face a loss, it's like it's heartbreaking. Like, why did this? You have this. Why did this happen to me? Why me? Like, you have this very internal attitude that, like, oh, nothing, like there's nothing I can do. But I think, well, I definitely am of the opinion that like everything happens for a reason, and that this loss has happened and has given me some it has given me an idea of who it is I want to become, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What are your views spiritually? Anyway, spiritually. Did I say that correct? Yeah, spiritual. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm Orthodox. Well, not. I don't know if I'd go as far as say Orthodox, but I'm Jewish, and like I have the kind of core beliefs of Judaism, which is one God, and I
Yeah.
can't really I and like I do believe in it. Like I do believe I don't know if I believe in hell specifically, but I do
Yeah.
believe somewhere that we go, and that God is there after we pass. And
Yeah.
in terms of like when people say stuff like, but how do you know you don't know what's going to happen, and like how do you deal with like why did God take them away? How do you deal with that? And I just I think there's like a line in like the book or the story about Job in the Torah. I'm not a religious person. I'm not a particularly religious person,
Yeah.
but I think he says something along the lines of, "I spoke of things beyond my understanding," and so I kind of came to the conclusion where, although I believe I believe I will see them again. For me to question why would be pointless, because it's something that's, again, like beyond my intellectual capacity. Yeah, understanding and intellectual capacity, like as a human being, I suppose.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how.
Yeah, I completely understand that. I think, like I said, it's very like when you are faced with a loss, it's the first thing you do is you blame everyone else, but ultimately what has happened, and there's two ways you can go about life. You can not, it can be something that you can't progress from, you can't move forward, or it can be you understand what has happened, and it's not something that will ever go. The feelings, the grief is ever present. It's ever in our minds, and it's not something that can will ever escape. But it's at the same time you learn how to deal with it. You learn what it is that how your grief is maintained, and for me it's whether that's playing football or, like I said, talking about the person mum is. But I know that's not the same for everyone. So my question would be, how have you managed your grief, and how like what works for you, sort of thing?
I think it's a combination of things, really. Sometimes it can be, I think sometimes it can be sport as a part of like just kind of taking my mind off things, being able just to focus on something else. Sometimes it's kind of more direct, where I like to go to the grounds, go to the cemetery.
That's nice.
And just kind of like, and just there's like a bench about a couple meters from where they're buried, and I just kind of sit there. Maybe it can be half an hour, an hour, 2 hours, and just think, just kind of get perspective. I guess.
Yeah. I think, that's really lovely. I know some people find it difficult to go to the grounds, and I think that's maybe acceptance, or I don't really know. It can be difficult, but I think for me anyway, it's very nice to. I always feel like I'm having a two-way conversation. I feel like when I'm there, mum understands me. She like we're even like I do believe she can hear me, and whatever it is I'm saying, or so yeah, I get what you're saying. Like it's nice to go to the grounds and just be with her or them in your case scenario. Um, it's I mean, obviously a lot of time has passed, and I think that's something, with time people kind of not check up on you less, but it's like because so much time has passed, it's like not a
People don't consider it.
present in people. Yeah, is this something you found, or like are you
Yeah,
over time? Yeah,
it is. I mean, it is something that I've noticed because like people kind
yeah,
of, as in they don't really consider it as much sometimes, and like I think
yeah,
that's, as in if it was me, I feel like that's completely fair enough because I don't think it's that
yeah.
I don't want to burden them with my feelings or how I
No,
feel about
of course
anything,
not, of course not.
and they whether I'm having a bad day or a good day or anything like that, or uh, but it just becomes less present because once it happens and then it's almost as if like after like a year or 2 years, whatever it is, it's like it's done, and now it's like kind of everything's back to normal. But as I said
Yeah,
before, with the tar in the jar, everything, it's always going to be there, and it's always going to be something on your mind, no matter how small comparatively
yeah,
it is to everything else in your life. It's always going to be there.
yeah. I mean, I like to think of grief, well, trauma and grief as like a wound, and whenever you whenever you open up that wound, and whenever you return to that wound and remember, like I've got a knee injury, right? I played football, and I did something to my knee, not really relevant to, well, it is somewhat. And whenever I remember and I think about what happened and when I had that injury, I initially have this weakness. I feel scared to re-enter a football pitch, sort of thing. And it's similar to grief, because whenever I reopen those wounds and I think about the pain and think about how devastated I was when this initially happened, it just all starts spiraling, sort of thing. And I think it's this wound that will never go. It's part of our internal skin, and that's okay. Like it's okay, um, that these things will happen. But I think with time, things don't change. Like it just because 10, 20 years pass, or however many years pass, the feelings and the thoughts will still all be there, waiting to, and that doesn't make it any less valid. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Like even as recently as like a few years ago, there were things kind of things I was dealing with in terms of them, like in terms of my brother. Uh, when I was kind of 18, I had A level. We did A levels, and
Yeah.
I didn't get the grades I wanted at the end. And then bear in mind,
Okay.
like my brother was kind of always like my parents would go to parents' evenings and they'd be like, no, you don't need to listen. He's absolutely fine. He's doing great. Just go somewhere else. You don't. I have more pressing people to deal with. But so like that was always playing on my mind, and like it took me a while to figure out for me off like for that in that time that I wasn't, just because I wasn't going to be like him, just because I wasn't going to maybe take the same route as him or do
Yeah.
exact same thing, be kind of, or get the grades I wanted straight away all the time or whatever it was. And that was
Yeah.
okay. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to be able to enjoy my life and go through it
And be a success. Yeah.
yeah, and be successful.
I think, and I'm sure, of course, you will be. And I think you know, it's important to like obviously acknowledge that like you are, you know, obviously you and your brother are different people, and you have, but it's also nice to accept like this, you know, he will always be present, and he will always have that just being able to push you in the right direction, sort of thing. You know, what particular days? Now, this is a weird one, because some days I find their loss harder to deal with than others. Of course, like Mother's Day and things like that. Are there particular days for you that you've kind of noticed?
There are some, yeah. I think whenever, well, I don't know if I'd say hard, but I'd say it's just kind of, it's more apparent in my head whenever I
Yeah.
kind of whenever I go to Israel to see my my family, because it's all, because my mum,
Do you have a lot
she
of
has,
family there?
yeah, my mum, she has a massive family there. She has, I think we're gonna say eight siblings.
Oh wow.
Three brothers,
Big
five
family.
sisters. Yeah. So it's like they're always in my head whenever I'm there, like always thinking about it, because we talk about it quite a lot there.
Yeah.
And it's always weird seeing them, because in a way, whenever I see them, like her sisters and her brothers, like I see my kind of my mom in many ways. Like I see like the kind of similarities in the in like their personality and their appearance. And it's a little bit it's very surreal sometimes.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, that does sound incredibly overwhelming, but it also sounds somewhat comforting. I mean, I don't know, but you know, to see some, what, you know, these people who somewhat embody the person your mum is, it must be somewhat, I don't know, comforting maybe.
It is. It is.
That's the right word.
Yeah, it is very comforting. I think I don't know if I'd say I have like hard or particularly difficult days by definition. I kind of just have days where I think about them more and days where I think about them less. And that's not, and although it can be heavy, I kind of enjoy thinking about, in a way, it's like, it's very bittersweet to think about them in a way. And it's kind of like, I love it, because they're my family and I love them, and, you know, I thank them every day for everything that they've done for me, and I personally believe continue to do. But then obviously it was, when you think about having the fact they're not here, it is on the other hand very upsetting. So it's like so it's very two-sided.
It's always going to have that you know, contrasting opinions and contrasting thoughts, and that's, you know, always going to be there, and it will never really shake. You know, like you said, whenever, you know, someone's telling me about the person my mum is, you know, I'm smiling, there's a smile on my face, and then it's like that, you know, stab in the back, because I remember that, well, she's not here and I can't share that love with her anymore, sort of thing. And it's, you know, it's not easy. It will never not be easy. But I think something, you know, I'm gaining from this conversation is you found something, and you've been able to, you've dealt with your loss, and you are, you know, you not it's not so much managing it, you have found a way to live, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think I say sort of confidently, cautiously, I say that I have, and it's taken a long time. It's taken a very long time to figure everything out, and there are still new things that I'm figuring out, but I can say confidently that whatever I deal with now, I'm always going to have that sense of perspective because of what I've gone through, and that whatever new thing I figure out in terms of them, I can say that I'm able to deal with, thankfully. But with the help of, obviously, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No, carry on, man.
but you know, it should just
People over Zoom because the connection.
yeah, it's a bit weird, yeah, but it goes without saying that like I wouldn't be where I am today if not for like the people that are, you know, still in my life, like family, friends, family friends, and like all the and like everyone involved, like everyone time. And, like whenever we go to Friday nights at people's houses, or you know, they send me text messages or whatever it is, you know, simple stuff like that, I always gonna infinitely appreciate, and like was always yeah, and
I
always
think
like
that's something that's amazing about the Jewish community is, you know, after, you know, mum, after this passing, so many people came together to look after us as a family. You know, I feel like 3 or 4 different women have like tried not replace my mum, but have tried to take that role, sort of thing. And I think, you know, I don't know, you know, you know, I might be wrong, but it's an amazing community to be a part of, and one that I'm very grateful for being part of, sort of thing. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like there are so like from my aunties, my mother's friends, like there are so many people that you know have come that you know are in my life, and that you know have always tried to always treated me essentially as if I was their son, and I'm so grateful to all those people and so thankful. And you know there are so many people today, like as in from my brother's friends and cousins and family friends, that have also tried to not fill that gap, but just try to be there, trying to treat me like a brother. And I'm so grateful and so thankful that I had and have the support system that I do, and that you know there are so many people that go through things like this that don't. And to me it's just crazy, like when you think, it always gives me perspective and always tells me, I always remind myself that no matter what you're going through, no matter what you've gone through, there's always someone out there that's having a worse day than you. So always try to keep your head up and keep.
I mean, that is a lovely way of looking at it. I think it's okay to have certain days where, you know, you are feeling sorry for yourself and you are, well, not self-deprecating, but you're definitely, you're definitely in a bad way. And I think that's okay. Like it's okay to not always, you know, obviously it's in reality, it's nice to have perspective, but sometimes it's very hard to gain that perspective. And I think it's okay to understand that what we face is horrible. It's, you know, no 8-year-old kid should go through what you went through. And I think it's okay to acknowledge your reality, sort of thing. Is that something you find hard to do, or do you kind of try and push the pain aside, or like if you are in a bad way, do you accept your pain, or is it something you can push aside?
I do accept my pain. I mean, particularly like kind of the first few years were very kind of difficult in terms of you know, I did have very bad days, you know, just like I'm sure anyone else would, just like you would. But I think I'm kind of, as I said, like it's time, and then those bad days just seem to become less and less, and then they just go from being bad days to days where I think about them a lot, to days where they're just on my mind, you know. And so I don't, you know, thankfully I say that I'm at a point where bad days aren't really a thing for me, and I hope that, you know, anyone that goes through something like that can be at that, can get there, can reach that level.
Point.
That's the thing. And I think people, like some people do and some people don't. It's just how they choose to process things and how they're set up emotionally, psychologically, and it just varies. But that's kind of how
it takes a very, very strong a mentally strong person to be in the position that you're in, sort of thing. You know, a lot of people could, you know, would go about their life hating everything and, you know, being just blaming whatever and everyone else for what has happened. But it seems like you're in a position and you've reached some level of enlightenment where it's not an acceptance. Like I don't like saying accepting, because although I know that's one of the stages in grief, it's not an acceptance. You don't accept but I get it. You accept what has happened. You I can't accept that mum has passed, but I accept this is my new life, sort of thing. And I think you've reached that stage.
I have, but to be honest, I think it's more of a credit to the people around me, than it is to me, because they've made me, no matter how small, no matter how big a part, they've kind of made me who I am, like kind of, well, and who I want to be, I guess. So
yeah, well,
I'm just,
that's amazing, man. Before I wrap this up, because I'm slightly wary of time, and obviously I need a rest because COVID-19 and that.
Yeah,
but
how are you feeling? I was going to ask, how are you feeling?
Do you know what, mate? I've been better, definitely been better, but I've also been a lot worse. I kind of started getting symptoms, like not your classic symptoms, but it's definitely, I'm on the mend. Like I'll be all right Monday or Tuesday, I reckon, and then I'm out of quarantine on Thursday. So hopefully I'm all good. But yeah. Anyway, so back to, before we do wrap this up, I want, like, if there's something you could say to your brother and your mum, to just let them know what's going on in your life. If you had like one conversation, what would you say, sort of thing? Very hard question, I know, but
yeah, I just say I'm okay, and I'm thankful for everything that they do, because I personally do believe that they're kind of up there and they're like keeping an eye on us. I've had moments where I've seen signs and things, like a bit of a tangent here, but I was younger. It was like but it was like my 13th birthday in the morning, and obviously for someone who's Jewish, that's kind of a big deal for a Jewish guy, because it's like turning from a boy to a man. Yeah. I just did like just to myself, like a small prayer, just like thanking them for keeping an eye on me, and for everything that they do. And then I remember, and then for some reason I have like a speaker by my bed, and it's connected to the landlines, and my iPod, I had an iPod at the time, was on it, and it just started playing theme music from, have you ever seen, any chance you've seen Batman Begins?
With Christian Bale?
Yeah. Do you remember at the end of like the first film where where it's like the music from that, where he goes, where Gordon goes, "I never said thank you," and then Bale goes, "And you'll never have to," and then it's the end of the film.
Okay. Yeah.
I have that on my phone because I love movie theme music. I love like superhero film theme music. All right, I'm a bit of a
so do I, man. So do I. I love the Guardians of the Galaxy.
That's a great shout. They have a really good playlist. But it was just like, I thought it was them telling me that you'll never have to thank us for everything that we do, and we do it because we love you and we care about you. And I guess I just say thanks, and I'll be okay.
Yeah,
that's.
I think like you said, it's just acknowledging that you will be okay. And once again, I just want to say thank you for the first Zoom call, first little Living with Loss Zoom call. So hopefully this looks all right. If not, blaming your Wi-Fi, not mine. No, mine's not great, but
wow. But yeah, no, seriously, I'm honoured, and it is my pleasure. Thank you for having me on. And I haven't seen you in Notts at all. So I've been in Notts for like a week and a half. I haven't seen you at all.
Yeah. Are you in London or Notts right now?
I'm in London right now.
Oh, you're in London.
Yeah.
It's a shame, but we work with what we've got.
Yeah.
Obviously
Maybe we'll do
COVID out
something.
here. Yeah, 100%, man. That'd be amazing. But yeah, wishing you well, and I'll see you very soon. But thank you again for doing this today. It's been amazing.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. No problem. See ya.
See ya.